Bada boom, bada bing. Jeff and Drew. What's
Hello.
up, gentlemen?
How you
How's it
doing?
going?
It's going good, man. Oh, I see half of Drew. Oh, there you go. I was like, I don't know if your camera's broke or what, brother.
My screen protector, my camera
Oh,
block was halfway open.
you got one of those on there. Yeah. Good move. Good move. Jeff, what's up?
Not much. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Did I see a Bigfoot sticker on that coffee mug, brother?
Yeah. Says I
I'm
believe
with
in
you.
this.
I'm with you.
I'm with
I'm
Can I
with you,
get it?
bro. I gotta send. I believe in myself. That's what I gotta send you a picture when I go home to Ohio in like a week here. My dad's got like two Bigfoot mugs, just Sasquatch mugs. It's the funniest shit ever. My sister always gets him Bigfoot stuff. She always says he's like a little Bigfoot. But awesome. Awesome, you guys.
There have
I
been
was telling. What was that?
there have been sightings in every state in the nation. So somewhere near
He's
you
got
there's a
the
Bigfoot.
facts, bro. Jeff's got the facts. He's
those
ready to go.
tinfoil hat time or what?
He's ready to go. It's just a Bigfoot
Even
call, guys. Just
even Hawaii.
yeah. You guys got
Thing is,
snubbed. It's not nutrition tonight. We're talking about Bigfoot. Oh man. Guys, I appreciate you being here. I was just telling Jacob right before we opened up the room. Plan today was to have a guest speaker. I haven't been able to get him locked in for a time yet. It's actually kind of a funny story. It's Cal Reynolds. You guys might know him on Twitter, you might not. But he's definitely Jacob. I'm gonna send his Twitter so you can just like tease his feed. I went to college with this guy and then happened to just stumble across Cal Reynolds on Twitter. And I looked into it. I was like, holy shit, I know that guy. I went to college with him. He graduated though. I didn't. Let's see. He is similar to Chris McIlveen, Cooking with Chris. He's a chef, but he's a tasty chef. He's not like a clean, like save your gut health chef like Chris is. Don't get me wrong, Chris's stuff tastes really good. Cal just optimizes for just tasting good and protein. That's it. He doesn't care about gut health. He don't give a shit. He don't care. But actually some of the recipes in the book that are like the tasty ones kind of towards the end that aren't necessarily, health optimal are from him actually. So this will be a fun guest appearance.
Wow, that does look amazing.
Oh yeah, it's super legit. Super legit. So yeah, I'm working on getting him in here. But because of that little mishap, what I wanted to do today instead was just literally just open the floor and treat it as a Q&A because I know we don't have a Q&A call on the calendar anymore. So I think it's good to every so often have one of these anyways. I think Drew, you've probably been here for one. Jeff, you've probably been here for one for a nutrition one. I think every 4 to 5 weeks it's good to just be like, yo, what questions do you guys have? Instead of me just sitting here and talking for 25 minutes and then opening the floor to you guys. So what situations have you guys run into recently with nutrition or questions that you have that come to mind?
I have one to start out with. So recently I kind of hit I've had a long plateau in my weight loss, and I've been on like 1,700 calories a day.
Cool.
And Alex recently just we had a talk, and he bumped up my calories. I don't know if it's just the length of like a refeed, or if it's a maintenance thing. And I was wondering what the strategy there was, whether to I can talk to him about it too, but just generally, like, what is a refeed? Should you bump up your calories for a period of time to kind of reset your metabolism? And what happens in that? And and how long should that be? And when do you go back to a cutting diet?
So typically with a refeed, and let me just clarify first before I get too deep into the woods, how long ago did you get those bumped up?
That was a week ago.
Okay, let me see. I'm pulling up your account, Jeff, just so I can see, because that'll be able to give me some more data here. I'll be able to just watch how it changed. Just look at your chart. Okay, cool. Are you cool with me sharing numbers on here too, Jeff?
Sure.
So I see we're at 242 down to like 230 and kind of hovering around that 230 mark for the last month or two, it looks like, and a little spike today.
Yeah.
And about a week ago would have been this day. So the trajectory is up. Since bumping your calories, the trajectory is up. Like very, very evidently up. Now it's only been a week. That being said, I would let that run as long as one more week. But if the trend keeps going up for another week, definitely going to not keep the calories where they are now. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
When it comes to metabolism resets, a lot of people talk about the refeed, exactly what you're talking about, right? A lot of people think it's going to be a situation where it's like, well, my metabolism's screwed, so I need to eat more calories and get it back. There is validity to that in the sense of you need to just make sure you're hitting at least your BMR. You need to hit your basal metabolic rate. Typically, the only time you run into a deep metabolism problem is when you've been below that for too long. And too long is usually like more than 6 months. So the way to fix these, yes, there's a layer of it that is we need to eat more calories, but really it's just taking people from an 800 calorie diet to their BMR at least. So you're well beyond your BMR right now. So like you're eating enough to quote unquote reset your metabolism if there was a metabolic problem that we needed to address with calories. Example of this, my dad did like an extreme metabolic, quote unquote, like, well, it wasn't metabolic. It was a keto diet, but it was also a low calorie keto diet. He was eating like anywhere from 800 to 1200 calories a day, which is far below any man's BMR. Okay. After 4 or 5 months, he had a metabolic crash, right? Where his body just starts holding everything. All that requires to break that from a caloric perspective is just getting to BMR. Like I said, you're there. The next step, if metabolism and metabolic health was a concern, would be actually quality. So how many conversations have you had with Alex in regards to just actual food quality beyond just the number of calories you're consuming? I know you're beyond the initials 12, so I know that's a little more difficult, but have you had those conversations? Did you get to that point at all?
We haven't talked specifically about my stuff, but just in general, just being on these calls, I've been thinking more about quality. I know it's a area I need to pay more attention to.
Yep,
for sure. So that would be a way to clean it up, I guess, is to
right. And if the concern was metabolic health per se, like I would say for you're beyond your BMR and you have been the whole program. Like you haven't been below your BMR calorically speaking. Maybe for a brief instance you were, but not long enough for me to be worried about your metabolic health in relation to the amount of calories that you're having. My biggest thing for you would be food quality now to improve metabolic health. However, no matter how you square it, I know we talked about the Paul Saladino thing last week. No matter how you square it, it is going to come back to the calories in, calories out equation, right? Like if we're gaining weight, it's because we're consuming too many calories or we're consuming more than we're burning. That can be improved by you cleaning up the food quality because your metabolism will improve. So you'll burn more calories at rest because your metabolism's healthier, but it still is a matter of there's too many calories coming in, not enough going out. So it's going to be a combination of multitude of things. Really diving deep into what do our activities levels look like. Maybe 2,200 calories is too much right now. And then food quality. Right. So it's going to be a combination of those three. Easiest one to fix, I shouldn't say easiest, simplest one to fix would be dropping back the calories again if we let it go for a few more days and see how your body reacts to it. But I definitely wouldn't stay there. If another week goes by and you're up from 231 to more than 5 or 6 pounds from there, like I would peel it back down to like 2.
Okay.
What has over that would be the simplest one. The next simplest one would be the movement. What does your like total movement look like recently?
I've been getting the 10,000 steps a day.
Okay.
And then I got three weightlifting sessions a week.
Okay.
And in those I typically do a uphill ruck for a mile or two after. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I'm looking at your protein too. Your protein's fine. Yeah, your protein's fine. Every now and then you'll miss it. You miss it, but it's not frequent that you miss it.
Yeah, sometimes my logging on the weekends falls off. But
yeah,
I know I'm the most low calories, but
so again, I think the biggest thing here for you looking at your sheet is obviously not a movement problem. Like you're getting plenty of movement. Calories might be a little high, and that's fine. That's part of the experiment, right? The refeed is probably not required from a calorie standpoint. It probably does come down to the most complex one, which is food quality. That is complex, but it would be the next step for you.
Okay.
right? Like I said, keep addressing or keep your eye on how the weight fluctuates for the next week with the new calorie total. If it keeps going up, like we're just gonna peel it back straight up. Just peel it back.
Okay.
In the process though, let's talk and start this conversation while we're here about food quality. So I'm gonna
Can I make a comment real quick? Sorry.
totally. Yeah, I'm gonna pull up one of his sheets. So Jacob, go ahead.
Yeah, no, a couple things. Number one, I agree with everything Joey said and such. And I don't know, the science behind refeeds, like for extended periods of times, is pretty like mixed. Some
Yeah.
people say it can like boost your metabolism, increase leptin, which tells your body you're full and such. And then there's also studies that show it does like absolutely nothing except help you gain weight, right? Which you're kind of experiencing a little bit right now, Jeff. I think the best thing about refeeds are the mental reset it provides. Like 1,700 calories, that's pretty hard when you're a guy your size. That's tough to sustain. And so, what I would say, and Alex is your coach, so you defer to him. But if you're in a surplus like you are right now, like I try and lift a little bit more if you can. Make sure you're pumping out hard sessions, burning extra calories, right? Because you're probably feeling way better going into your lifting sessions than you did when you're at 1,700, right? So take advantage of that, like crush those freaking workouts. And then back to the plateau side of things, I would definitely like, food quality number one. That's huge. That's huge for your metabolic health. I would also look at like, what's your sleep and stress look like, right? Are you getting quality sleep? Are you overtly stressed? If you're producing excess cortisol, it's going to make it way harder to lose weight, even in a deficit. So, I mean, sleep and stress, especially when you're in that much of a deficit, that's like, besides food quality, that's probably priority number 1A. Like, look at your sleep and stress. Because if you're not sleeping and you're super stressed all the time, it's going to make weight loss even harder.
Yeah, that's something that I've noticed recently is my sleep. Something I focused on in the beginning of the program was my sleep, and it's something that's kind of fallen off because I've been trying to wake up early to get stuff done.
Yeah.
So I might pay attention to that again. Yeah,
sure.
that's a good reminder. Thanks, Jacob.
Yeah.
Jacob, yeah, thank you for chiming in because it's totally accurate. Like everything you say is completely accurate. It's like training and nutrition is like the main thing. It's like get those squared away first, but the next block after that is the sleep. It's undoubtedly sleep is always like the third on the totem pole. So the fact that we pretty much kind of have our answer with the refeed for you, like it looks like if I had to guess, like it's kind of having the effect Jacob mentioned, where it's the only thing it's doing for you is helping you gain weight. Now, don't get me wrong, you're gonna feel better because you're kind of refueling after a while of being in low cal. But if it keeps trending that way, we'll probably want to peel it back a bit. But your protein's fine. And honestly, dude, I just looked at your last, like while Jacob was going, I looked at your last like 4 weeks of logged meals. Like your food quality is pretty good. Like, could it be better? Sure, but it's at least, from what you have tracked, it's at least 80% clean. I know there's some weekend days that are skipped, which could totally throw a wrench in it. Like totally could throw a wrench in it. And I'm not saying that's what's happening. It could throw a wrench in it though. Because if there's 2 weekend days that are shit, those last 4 weeks that I just looked at, that goes from 80% clean to maybe we're like 70. But from what I see and what's tracked, like you're doing good on the quality. So I think exactly what Jacob brought up is probably the next thing for you, which is sleep. And I know you and I were chatting about that in Slack a little bit. When do you think you started to deprioritize sleep?
Yeah, honestly, it was when we did the step challenge, the 20K step challenge. I started to try to wake up early to hit those steps, and then I continued that. I have been walking every morning now. So, and then at the same time, my son has decided that that daylight savings didn't work out for his bedtime, so he's pushed that back, and so it's been like an 11 o'clock to 5 a.m. sort of thing. So yeah, I'm short on sleep.
So was this like within the last month, right? It's been like about a month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a good notice.
You want to know something funny? Well, not funny, but data is always this is why tracking weight. This is a masterclass. I'm gonna put this in the onboarding right here. This recording, what's about to happen. Okay. So Jeff, this was like a month ago, right? Your second to lowest weigh-in was on April 14th, which is just a smidge over a month ago. And your biggest spike in weight was between that date and April 20th. So that 6-day stretch, you spiked about 6.5 pounds in that week stretch, which is about a month ago, which is probably about when the sleep started to teeter off a bit, right? So this is where data, and I'm not saying it's to a T, but it's around there, right? So I think we've found our answer by just having data and kind of talking through this, right? It's probably for you, it's maybe the calories are a little high, like we said. Maybe the food could be a little cleaner. Movement, I mean, I think you're probably doing great, but I think sleep is probably the answer for you, just looking at data and having this conversation.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good call out. I think that's something I need to focus on a little bit more here. So
And the reason I said that this recording, this portion of the call is going to be like a onboarding clip is because that I can only answer that with data. Like if you were like, yeah, I started to fall off on sleep a month ago, and I look at it 2 months ago, and you don't have weigh-ins for the last 2 months, I can't tell you shit. So props to you for being consistent about tracking this, because I open your account and I have like 60 weigh-ins here, like 65 weigh-ins. Like, dude, I can get you some answers. As a coach, I can get you answers when I have data like that, which is really, really good. I know the exact day your calories bumped, and I can see how the trend has changed since then. I know roughly when we stopped we started deprioritizing sleep, and I can see what happened to your body weight then. I can see where the trend was, where you hit your low point, and when we started to plateau. So I just want everybody that's watching the recording, and then you guys that are here to continue. And you guys aren't culprits of this. You guys are both amazing with your data. Both of you guys have a shitload of data in your account. But this is just to reiterate the importance of it, because that's the only way we could come to this conclusion for Jeff, which I think it's pretty clear we found the answer, is it's probably the sleep. Monitor the calories, see how your weight fluctuates the next week. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What are you working on right now, sleep wise? I know you and I have talked a little bit about like the nose strips and the mouth tape. And have you tried implementing either of those?
both, yeah. So I probably 5 days a week with the mouth tape.
Cool.
And nose strips. The mouth tape's a little difficult.
Yeah.
The mustache and beard, but
Painful. It's painful the next morning.
yeah. I always wake up with it off somewhere on my hand, like I ripped it off in the middle of the night. And but I do notice that it gets me breathing through my nose as I go to bed. I think I am going to check in with my doctor though to see about sleep apnea, just to nail that down. Because I wear a smartwatch to bed, and it says like your sleep quality was low last night, kind of thing. You know, not very deep sleep and a few wake ups. So I might get it checked out.
Yeah. And one thing I've used for the mouth tape, because even with my little peach fuzz of a mustache here, guys, it still hurts me to have mouth tape. So even with this little fuzz, so I can't imagine what you guys have with these full grown man beards and mustaches you got. I just use electrical tape because it's just thin and it sticks through moisture, because a lot of the tapes I've tried, like they get wet and they fall off in the middle of the night just from your saliva.
That's the most Florida man thing I've ever heard. Dude, using electrical tape to sleep. That's insane.
Super probably not like good. Like my girlfriend was like, that cannot be good that you use electrical tape. I was like, it's probably not, but like I don't know what the consequences would be. It's probably not ideal, but I tell you what, I sleep like a baby when I use it. And outside of the bare minimum logistics of sleep and circadian rhythm, like we talked about a few weeks ago, of timing, right? Like the timing is everything. The consistent timing is how your body adjusts. So outside of eating meals, how we talked about it, with sleep, the most fundamental thing about sleep is just consistency. If you're going to bed within that same hour time block, you know, say, let's just call it between 9 and 10 p.m., and you're waking up within that same hour time block each day, say between 5 and 6, like that is the first thing that people should nail. That is the first thing that people should nail. If you're not doing that, all the other additives like nose strips and mouth tape and supplements, like you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. So like that is the main priority. There has to be rhythm. That's the only way your body's going to know, hey, it's time to produce melatonin. It's time to go to bed. So that's the most fundamental thing. After that, you can kind of play around and figure out what micro optimization works for you. But the biggest force multiplier is having a schedule of sleep. After that, you can dabble with all kinds of shit. Like we could have a whole module, and we will soon, on just sleep stuff. Because after that, I could talk about blue light with you, Jeff. I could say like, okay, well, what's your blue light look like, 2 hours before bed? Are you staring at your phone? If so, do you have blue light glasses on or not? That's, and we're recording this, so I'll riff it out real quick just because we have it recorded. So don't worry too hard about taking notes. But the first thing will be that I'd be like, okay, what's the next micro optimization once we have the foundation? It's like blue light. What does consumption of blue light look like 2 hours before bed? Are the lights in our house off? Do we have candles lit? I know for me and Matt personally, Once like 8:30 rolls around, like we don't have any lights on. It's literally typically just candles. And we have blue light glasses on for when we're on our phone or if we want to watch TV. You can get blue light glasses for $15 on Amazon. It's super minor. Whether or not the cheap ones from Amazon work or not, or how effective they are, I'm not sure, but it's better than nothing. You can get expensive, fancy ones, but I personally, I notice a difference with the cheap ones. That's the first thing is blue light. Then we could talk about how close to bed are you eating? Same kind of timeline, like 2 hours before bed, you want to be done eating typically. And that's as simple as that. There's no other nuance to that. It's just try to finish eating at least 2 hours before bed. Then we could talk about supplementation. Like magnesium glycinate is typically the magnesium branch. There's so many different magnesiums. Glycinate is the one that's more prioritized for sleep. I take like 400 milligrams before bed, 400, 600 milligrams before bed, about an hour before bed, right? That's helped me a ton. Then you have the nose strips and the mouth tape. I don't use the nose strips. I just use the mouth tape because I don't struggle breathing through my nose really at all. So I just use the mouth tape and that works for me. And personally, when I have the mouth tape, whether or not I use the nose strips, I don't have a difference personally in my sleep quality or how I feel. It's just the mouth tape makes a big difference for me. If I don't wear mouth tape now, I wake up, like last night I didn't, woke up, sore throat, kind of feel crappy today. It's a tangible difference for me. But the only reason it's a tangible difference for me, and this is like when we were talking about micro optimizations with nutrition last week, is you're not going to notice those differences with something micro like that unless you have the fundamentals laid down. Because I go to bed at relatively the same time every night and wake up relatively the same time, I prioritize my blue light. I try to stop eating within 2 hours before bed. I take my magnesium. I do the mouth tape. So when I skip one of those steps, I notice it, but I only notice it because I have the groundwork laid. Just like nutrition. A guy that's 100 pounds overweight is not going to notice the difference in how he feels between regular ground beef and grass-fed ground beef. He's not going to notice the difference. Right. So that was I wanted to riff all that off and just make sure that the information was out there. I know I went really fast, but it's recorded, so we're good. But I wanted to make sure that everybody had that sleep stuff. Yeah.
With that same list, what about like doing, exercise cardio at night? Because I kind of do my like weight program during the day, and then I've been going like at night and doing like cardio stuff. So I usually try to get home by 9 o'clock. But that's what's kind of worked out with my schedule recently.
Yep.
How's that impact sleep?
Great question. Research will tell you a lot of different things. I'll give you my backwoods, like my mentors that have worked with like high level athletes. I always go back to that because that's the peak of human performance, professional athletes, right? At the end of the day, they are literally peak. That is prime. If you want to pull data from anywhere, you can pull it from a professional athlete and then just extrapolate it to a normal person. And it's going to make a lot of sense for them too. With professional level athletes, Tim, who was my mentor for a few years, his biggest thing when it came to that, Drew, was trying to not have any sort of heart rate, like breaking 100 beats per minute within 4 hours of sleep.
Oh, wow.
So like he was big on it. He was big on it. I try to apply that. Obviously, though, it's not always going to be optimal. Like the other day, I didn't have a chance to go to practice at noon like I normally do. So I went to practice at like 8 p.m. And I went to bed at like 10:30 or 11. So I went to bed almost like an hour later. And I was freaking working out close to bed. So like that was not a good night of sleep for me. But I knew it wasn't going to be because sometimes you got to do what you got to do. It's not always going to be perfect. But in an ideal world, yeah, like you don't want to breach 100 beats per minute within 3 to 4 hours of bed is what I learned from firsthand anecdotal experience with high level athletes, which I take that advice because those guys, their job is to be functioning optimally as a human. For people like us that aren't professional athletes, that number might get cut in half.
Mm-hmm.
I don't make millions of dollars showing up and playing sports. I don't have to be in peak athletic capabilities with peak cognitive function, or else I get hurt or a teammate gets hurt or we lose a game and everybody's pissed. I don't have to be there. So for me, that number might look like 2 hours before bed. But for peak high-level athletes, his number was 4.
Okay.
Does that make sense how it differs with like us?
Yeah.
Because with them, of course, like, yeah, we need to be peak optimal always. That is how they make money, is how their body functions. For us, it don't work like that.
Yeah.
Unless
that
I
makes
have
sense.
professional contracts that I don't know about.
Almost.
You guys got the NFL contracts lined up. No, that's a good question, Drew. Is that helpful, Jeff, with just mentality with sleep going forward and stuff?
Yeah, and just a good reminder that that's something I haven't. I've been aware of it, but haven't focused on it in some time. So yeah,
Brother,
tonight
it's
I'm going to
easy
bed
to
early.
overlook. It's easy to overlook. That's the one for me. If I had to go down my list of training, nutrition, and sleep, sleep's always the one that I if I had to pick one I overlook regularly, it's that one. And it's really easy, especially as men with responsibilities. And I don't have a family, you do. So I can't imagine the pull that you feel from time to time, even as simple as maybe you staying up an hour extra late to maybe watch TV or watch a movie with the wife or the kids or something like that, right? Like I know I feel that way with Matt. Sometimes we want to stay up and watch a freaking movie. My roommate, my best bud, right? I can't imagine how you feel when it comes to like a family. So don't beat yourself up because it's the most common one to overlook. It's the one I overlook, and I know damn well Gabe does too. Because sometimes this dude's sending me Instagram reels at like 10:30. I'm like, bro, go to bed. Like, dog, hit the hay. But it's simple to overlook, but it's still very, very important. And if you find yourself in a plateau or you find yourself getting sick regularly, which is a common one for people as an indicator of sleep, like that's one place to look. And I think you're going to notice a monumental difference. It's a tough one though, dude. It is a tough one. And I don't sugarcoat that because I struggle with it still sometimes. Sometimes I like to stay up a little late too and watch some TV and hang out.
Yeah,
Especially as men, man. It's easy to work too. Like it's easy to like do paperwork and shit. My dad is the worst with this when I was growing up. Like he would stay up till midnight doing paperwork, staring at that freaking blue light can in his computer. He'd go to bed late. In his sleep, he was always tired. But as men, it's just very easy to kind of get roped into something like that too, if that's an avenue for you.
yeah.
Jacob, do you have anything to add in regards to sleep?
No, I agree with what you said in that like the micro optimizations don't really matter if you're not being consistent with how much you're sleeping and hitting your circadian rhythm, right? You know, like that circadian rhythm is like your natural optimized sleep time frame, right? So you really want to make sure you number one figure that out for yourself. Everyone's a little different, right? Some people are more night owls, some people are early risers. Figure out the rhythm that works for you and stick to it and just be consistent with the sleep you get. For me, it's like if I get less than like 6.5, I'm dragging. I hate my life, right? And so some people are different. I know guys who can run off 5 and they'll deadlift like 600 pounds. I'm like, all right, dude, you're insane. I would die if I tried that. So and then like I always like to think about like sleep quality, right? And Joey kind of hit on this as well. Is like find I don't know. I tell a lot of my fitness clients, like, find your own routine that works for you. Like, make a routine when you're going to bed, right? So I think one of the worst things you can do is like pull a late night, be at your computer, till 10:55 and then go straight to bed, right? It's really not great for you. You're not going to get good quality of sleep. Like, set aside 10 or 15 minutes to take a hot shower, write in your journal, meditate or something, create like an actual sleep routine. And that'll help you a lot, in terms of developing the habits, you're trying to reinforce and also getting better sleep quality.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I did as well, this is a few years ago, I did this, but it was this idea of, I don't know if you're struggling with this at all, Jeff, but somebody somewhere is struggling with this and they might hear this and might help them. Just get the TV out of your room. Like genuinely, if you haven't already, it's the best thing I've ever done because a lot of people get super comfortable with, they got the TV in the room, they pop it on before bed, they fall asleep and it's on. And while you're sleeping, that's just firing at you. And me and Matt came up with that blue light cannon thing, but it's super true. Like it's just a cannon of blue light shooting at you. And they've done studies. This is going to sound insane. They've done studies where they've measured sleep waves of people while they're sleeping and how light impacts them. And there was one, again, this is the guy that hates studies, but it's just funny to talk about. I don't know if this is true or not, but it's interesting because I read it. While one subject was sleeping, the test subject, they were both just asleep. They did the same thing. Everything was the same. They had similar sleep qualities leading up to it. Like this was a relatively good study. When I talk about shitty studies and good studies, this was a relatively good study. And the test was shining a laser on the back of the kneecap of one of the subjects while they were sleeping. Okay. And the subject that had the laser, just the little red light laser, some bullshit that you would find at like a fair or something, right? That disrupted their sleep pattern. It actually took them out of deep sleep. So that's how sensitive the body is to light. Again, There's a lot of caveats with studies, but it's interesting. Am I saying everybody's that sensitive to light? No, and I don't think you can conclude that at all from that study. There's a lot of things that could have happened, but it's interesting that they tested that and they found relatively solid data on light being that negatively impactful for your sleep. So a lot of people fall asleep with that TV on, and I'm like, dude, like you got to just get that shit out of your room. Like just don't even have it there. And the other thing about that is you have the environment around sleep too, which sounds super woo woo and like hippy dippy, but it matters. I, with a roommate, don't have the luxury of having a separate office right now. I've had it before. I've had it now. Personally, I don't notice too much of a difference, but I know a lot of people would suffer from mixing their office or their TV and lounge space with their bedroom. The bedroom genuinely should just be for sleep. Like you should optimize it just for sleep and get the TV out of there, get the desk and office out of there in an ideal world. I know that's not always realistic. Like for me, it's not realistic, but you should try to get as close to that as possible. The environment matters too. It's huge. That was fun. I like going on a little sleep tangent. We could have like a sleep call. Like we genuinely could have a sleep call weekly. I think that's not unrealistic to have that at some point. It's just that big of a pillar that can be cool. Awesome. You guys have anything else follow up with that?
I don't know. The topic we're discussing kind of just makes me think of, I had a coach tell me one time, like when you're trying to optimize for nutrition or for strength or fitness and such, like focus on like the real lever moving tasks you can do, right? Like what's a lever moving task? Like something, that has relatively large impact. Sleep is one of those, right? Like choosing, like choosing the perfect meals for everything, or or mouth taping, right? Those are like Joey says, they're micro tasks, right? That help, but like the things that are going to move the biggest levers are like usually the most simple and plain to see, right? Like sleep. If you're cutting weight, you're sleeping like 5 hours, it's going to be pretty miserable, and your metabolism may suffer a little bit, right? So I don't know. It's interesting how like even Jeff and Drew, you guys are some of the best in Default Kings. Like even the longer you're in this journey, like the simple things are what continue to make an impact and like help you, progress, right? Drew, you came back from your trip a little heavier than you wanted to be. You just got back on track doing the same simple things that's worked the last like year for you, right? And then boom, you hit an all-time new, all-time low weigh-in, right? So it's just interesting how those lever moving, action items they're going to remain consistent throughout your fitness journey.
Yeah, the fundamentals don't change. And honestly, the longer you're in it, the more you lean into like, okay, I'm just going to hit the basics. Like for me, where I'm basically now in like a lifelong phase of like, hey, I'm just trying to stay healthy. Like eventually you get to this point where like training is just like, I just want to still feel good, look decent, and not get sick. Like that's what health is for me now. I'm like, hey, do I still look good? I take a progress picture like every 2 or 3 weeks and just make sure I'm not like getting soft and soggy. Right. And I make sure I'm healthy. I don't want to get sick. That's really all health is for me now. It's like, do I still look solid? Joints feel good? And am I staying healthy? Like that's it. Eventually you get to that point. And the way that I stay at that point is I just only focus on the big things. If I look at my training, the two biggest levers for training, it's going to be the intensity at which you train and are you overloading? Are you doing progressive overload? That's like 80% of the battle. Right? 80% of the battle for nutrition is quantity. Am I eating the proper amount of calories for my goal? Am I eating the proper amount of protein? That's 80% of the battle for nutrition. For sleep, it's do I have a schedule? You could maybe put light in there just because it has a lot to do with the melatonin release, but it's still mostly going to be the schedule. And maybe light in the sleep. But that's really the two things for each that make up 80% of the battle. With training, after you're focused on intensity and progressive overload, then you get into the weeds about like cycling and movement patterns and which ones are optimal for my biomechanics. And do I want to power lift? Do I want to bodybuild? Do I want to do CrossFit? Like there's so much that makes up that last 20%. And don't get me wrong, that last 20% is what makes people elite. But again, I'm not necessarily, and this is a guy that coaches this stuff and owns a business in this field. Like I'm not necessarily trying to be like elite per se for myself personally. Right. I know what it takes to be. I have the knowledge, but it's like, do I want to actually live out what that takes? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. It just doesn't fit what I want to do. I'm healthy. I look good. I feel good. That checks my boxes for me. I'm good. And that's what that first 80% does in all those qualities or all those categories. Good. So you guys got anything else follow up wise?
That's good stuff. That sleep is a timely thing for me as well right now. So that was good.
Yeah, it's always good to be reminded of that, even the big stuff. So
Yeah, it's always good to have these conversations for me too, because it's a reminder for me, right? Like sleep's the one for me. The more you talk about it, the more it just becomes in your sphere of influence and your sphere of inputs and everything, and it just recycles in your brain over and over. So the fact that you guys are guys that have been to literally probably like over 50 calls easily now, both of you well over that. You guys are probably getting close to triple digits. Like, this is how you actually maintain, is just continuing to have the conversation, continuing to hear it. Like, you know, all the fundamental shit you need. You could go off by yourself, like, and have the fundamentals forever. But the constant input of it, make sure that it never escapes your focus. So being on these calls is huge. Like, that's like me and Gabe make sure we go to like very frequently, even though our kind of sales process for our business is ironed out, the operations side of our business is pretty much ironed out. We still go to the sales calls and the operations calls with our mentorship group all the time, just to just constantly have it in the brain. We know this stuff, but we're just being reminded of it. It's constantly at the forefront, And that's how you just keep it there. It's just literally just listening and coming in and being part of it. I had one question from Martine. It was actually follow-up from last week. Let me see. Hey, what's up? I had a quick follow-up question following today's calls. Recently in a call with Alex and Chris, they recommended hip thrusts. And I've started doing those. Do these target similar muscles to the Zercher squats at all, or do they just complement each other? It would be similar, Martine. It would be very, very similar. So let me see here. I'm going to pull up a little graph. Actually, Jacob, could you pull up just a anatomical for hip thrusts and then one for Zercher squats?
Yeah, give me a second.
Because it's going to be similar. The biggest thing that would be taken out for the hip thrust would be your erectors and your upper back. Zercher is going to be a ton of back work. Hip thrusts aren't going to be a lot of back work, but the lower body is going to be relatively similar. It's always funny to see how these anatomicals come up. I'm sitting here saying like, well, it's kind of similar. And then the anatomical is going to pull up and like one's going to have the whole body highlighted red and the other one's just going to have glutes. Like, these are always funny. How they show it in a textbook.
Sorry, it's taking a second.
No, you're good, bro. I'm just mentally preparing for what it's going to show. Yeah, I knew this would happen. Yeah, see, like this anatomical doesn't even have your erectors highlighted for a Zercher squat. Fuckers. It's like the most erector dominant move. It's like, oh, it's just your quads. Okay. Yeah. Ton of glutes, ton of hamstrings, and some quads with the hip thrust. The hip thrust is basically just the lower body of the Zercher. It's pretty similar because it's a hip extension, right? It's a hip extension movement. There's less of a squat pattern, right? Like a Zercher squat's going to hit your quads more than a hip thrust would, but in terms of hamstring and glute engagement, it's going to be pretty close. The Zercher squat's going to be more quads, less glutes. The hip thrust is going to be more glutes, less quads. Right? Now you go to a Zercher squat though. Yeah, classic. It's got the legs highlighted, but the Zercher squat is just absolutely torturing your entire back.
Yeah, it's such a good back movement.
I do it on back day. Like I do it on back day, literally. So it tortures your back. Of course, this doesn't have it highlighted. That's classic, but it will be absolutely working your back, your upper back, your traps. It'll work your shoulders a bit. It'll work your lats. It'll work your core a ton. Zercher squat is like as close to a full body movement as you can get. Honestly, it's one of the best there is. So yes and no, Martine, to answer your question. Like, will they complement each other? Yes. Are they working similar movements? Yes. Are they the same? Not the same. Similar, can't complement each other. Kind of, there's not like a solid answer to your question specifically. I would say I know your concern is the rib flaring. I would prioritize the Zercher squats still. Totally prioritize those over hip thrust for that specific situation that I know you were asking about? Yeah, target similar. Do they target similar muscles? So they're sort of in the legs. Yes. Zercher squat's just better, in my opinion, if you had to pick one. And for your situation that you
So that would be the Zercher squat better for the forward hip tilt. I think we were talking about last week.
Right. So for what he's dealing with, where it's like it's a rib flare, like what he's got
Oh,
going
rib flare.
on is that spinal curve, right? It's like it's a backwards S curve in his spine. So when he's working this, it's impossible for him to have, like, if his spine curved that way, like he would fall backwards. Right. So it actually forces him into that forward flexion with the hips and forces him to brace his core and actually think about what's happening there. If you think about what a rib flare is, all it is just puffed out here, right? But that movement literally actually forces you into that contracted state with your core and forces you to come forward. On a Zercher squat, if I'm like this coming down with my ribs flared, I'm going to fall back on my ass. So you're forced to get into this position where I'm squeezing and tightening that up and reversing that curve that's going on in the spinature. And I come down into it, I'm folded over. Works all those muscles for him. That's very good. Awesome. Do you guys have any other questions? Anything else on your mind while we're here?
No, not today.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. I love when we just get deep. Like, Jeff, I love when we like pull up your your weight chart and your meals and stuff. And that was a coaching call. Like, that's coaching, like hands-on coaching. This is what is actually happening. This is what your guys' coaches are doing behind the scenes. It's like, okay, let me see. Like, I'm gonna look at this. Okay, I know this. I know this. Okay, let me look at this. Cool. This is that day. Like, you just go step by step and figure out what's going on. And we got to the problem, which was sleep, and then we talked about sleep for a half hour, right? So that's what's actually going on in the background. Like, that's how coaches actually evaluate the data. It's like, if I know this, then this, then this, then this. So that's always really fun to just get into the weeds and do that stuff. I know you guys have the VIP chat and everything, but I think I say this a lot, I feel like, but like, you guys can still absolutely send this shit to me in game. Like, absolutely. If you ever like just want another eye, like, just send it to us or just tag us in your VIP chat. We don't check the VIP chats because there's a friggin' 100 of them. So it'd be impossible to keep up with. But if you tag us, like, we'll go in there and I'll do exactly what we did here if you ever need an extra eye outside of just your coach.
Okay.
So feel free
Yeah.
to.
Same for me too. I mean, always defer to these guys, the leadership and such, but happy to help in any way. Jeff knows I'm like his plug for studies. Anytime he needs like empirical data, it's in his inbox, right, for me. So
Yeah. I always get the great reads from Jacob. So
Awesome. Yeah, dude. James always plugging studies. We'll be on this call. I'm like, bro, can you find a study on that, bro? I'm like, bro, can you
right
pull
in,
that up?
man.
yeah.
I feel like it's like on Rogan. He's like, James, pull that shit up.
Yeah, there we go. That's awesome. That's the best compliment.
I'm like, Jacob, bro, I know there's a study, bro. Can you find it while I'm riffing? While I'm on a tangent here, can you find data to back me up so I'm not too crazy? Yeah, awesome. Guys, I appreciate you being here. Hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day. Little development here with, I know you guys both come to retreat, so I want to fill you guys in. Working on getting that event space secured. Right now I have one spot secured. We're actually going to have two kind of event spots though. So one is secured, which is nice. So I'll update everybody on that, but the other one is almost done. So I'm waiting for that one, but just want to keep you guys in the loop, and I'll obviously send pictures and stuff once we get it together too. So you guys can get all excited about where it's going to be.
Yeah, got a lot of needs for one spot, so different things going on.
Like, how are we gonna do? I was like, yeah, did you see my tweet the other day?
Yeah,
I was like, dude, we gotta do like food, jujitsu, ice baths, like presentations, keynotes, this, that, small groups. I'm like, I don't know where the hell we're gonna do all this in one place, but I at least got one. So we should be good there. It sounds like we're gonna be able to use our jujitsu gym. So now I've secured the training center. Now the next step is pitching our coach on teaching a seminar, which is fun too. So I'll pitch him because I was like, "Do you ever use this for event space?" He's like, "Sometimes." I'm like, well, "We're having some clients down. Like, how do you do like the rent and renting it out?" He's like, "Oh, you guys can use it." I was like, "Oh, thanks, man." But now I'm gonna be like, "So, how you feel about coaching 40 white belts? How do you feel about coaching 40 white belts, coach?" But yeah, it'll be fun, guys. I'm excited, man. It's gonna be nice to meet you both.
Yeah, I'm excited
Awesome.
to be great. I'm really excited about jujitsu. It's been a while since I've done it, so
Dude, hell
Mm.
yeah, I'm excited. Drew, did you check out that gym yet, Drew?
I haven't gotten over there yet. It's been a crazy week, but yeah, I want to maybe this weekend's the holiday now. So yeah, next week I'm gonna
It's
get over there
scary,
and just
dude. The
check it
first
out.
time, just take the plunge.
I know. Yeah,
Everyone
this
is
week
so
has just been
nice.
crazy. Yeah, it's well, I got the green light from Joey and Gabe, and then a guy from the trip, Harold. He also looked into it and said it's seems like a solid spot. So
That's awesome. Yeah, dude. Yeah, dude. Yeah, nobody forgets their first day of jujitsu, bro. Nobody forgets it. Like, I remember my first day going to like a McDojo because I was in a McDojo for like a month, like a shitty one. And I remember that one. And then I remember going to my first real one where they were like, hey, you're rolling today, white belt. And the other gym I was at, they're like, you can't roll till you're a blue belt, which if you walked into a gym ever and they say that, leave, run far away. So they were like, you can't roll till you're a blue belt. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I didn't know any better. And then I go to this other one. I'm like a month and a half in, and they're like, all right, cool, we're doing rounds. And I shit my pants. I'm like, what? I literally said, I was like, hey, I'm still a white belt. Like, and he was like, yeah, like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, I thought I'm not supposed to roll yet. And he was like, oh God. He's like, no, you're rolling. And I just kept but yeah, it's funny. Everybody remembers the first time. So yeah, enjoy the excitement of it, man. Because you'll look
There you
back
go.
in like 3 years and you'll be like, man, that was killer. Awesome.
All right,
Guys, I hope
sounds
you guys
good.
have an amazing rest of your night. And as always, if you ever need anything, let me know.
Yeah, you as well. Have a good one.
Thank
Guys.
you.
Guys.